Welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths about corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about on their fancy website and trade show giveaways, all to protect you from cyber criminals. And now, here's your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Hello and welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by Mike Rotondo and Lauro Chavez. And today we also have a special guest, Dr. Heather Monti. Heather, hey, thank you for joining us today. Look forward to this conversation and chatting a bit about your background and experience. So looking forward to what we have to come here shortly. And
Thanks
Mike,
for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure. Mike, do you want to kick us off with the news before we dive into it here?
Thanks, Zach, and welcome, Heather. Real quick, we have a ton of news this week, but I'm only going to hit four things real quick. So check out the podcast site for some additional stuff. Real quick, Microsoft Exchange Server scan for proxy shell vulnerability patch now. What's happening is basically there are three vulnerabilities that were patched previously. They did an exploit at Black Hat, showed if you strung these three together, it actually created a new vulnerability. So patch up your Exchange servers ASAP. Check out Microsoft for that more information. NCSC has come out with a 3 random words strategy for passwords. They're saying enforcing complex requirements for passwords is a poor defense against guessing attacks. This is because minds struggle to remember random character strings, and being human, we use predictable patterns. According to Verizon, compromised passwords are responsible for 81% of hacking-related data breaches. So faced with making another specific password requirement, NCSE recommends you string 3 random words together, throw in some characters, and it's a better way of doing it. So you might want to give that a try. Got 3K, that's the market rate for stolen corporate credentials. There's 2 articles on this today. I'm going to string them together. The other one is hackers netting average of nearly $10,000 for stolen network access. Stolen credentials are always in high demand from cyber criminals to use for identity theft or slipping unseen in networks. Stolen corporate credentials typically sell on the dark web for 3K. However, a stolen user account for a high-ranking employee with large corporation has been observed selling for, and this is not a made-up number, $120K online. A cybersecurity team has identified nearly 26 million stolen credentials affiliated with the top 1,000 companies in America being shopped around online. I verified none of them are silent sector. The hackers netting average of nearly 10,000 stolen network access. This is a dovetail on this. It talks about how they're available on Russian and English language forums. So be really careful with your accounts, change your passwords regularly, and make sure you implement 2MFA or something else. Real quickly, I'm gonna hit 2 or 3 top headlines, but please check these out. SMBs increasingly vulnerable to ransomware despite the perception they are too small to target. There's a new ad load malware variant that's slipping through Apple's X-Protect defenses. This is even after the most recent patch, so be careful. And lastly, home and small business routers are under attack. And then there's a list out there of what's available and what's at risk. And there's a bunch more Microsoft print nightmare ones, but other than that, I'm going to stop there. Lauro, any exploits?
Yeah, I got a few this week. And, to your point about those home routers, check, if you haven't been familiar with Shodan, check that site out. They index all kinds of stuff that's connected to the Internet of Things. So you'll be surprised what you find there. This week in exploits, we got a couple things I think are interesting. First, there are 2 exploits for the Police Crime Record Management System 1.0. So if you're a law enforcement organization out there and your administrative branch or administrative operations are using this PCRM for crime management, make sure you're checking that out. There's case details SQL injection, and there's multiple stored cross-site scripting all over the application. The most concerning though is the SQL injection, because you can get case details without being authenticated. So check that out. And of course, back in the exploit news today is the 80s Bachelor Dirty Man WordPress. 2 more plugins this week. Picture Gallery 1.4.2. There's a stored cross-site scripting for that, so make sure you patch that plugin or remove it. And then if you're using Lifter Learning Management System, one of the new plugin LMSs that WordPress is offering, you can access other student grades and answers via directory structure. So check those 2 plugins out. That was Picture Gallery and Lifter LMS.
Where was that
And
stuff?
that's it. Yeah, seriously, that's what I was thinking. I was like, hey, that's not such a bad. Who's using Lifter LMS? Let's check all those grades and answers from the tests, and we'll just cheat.
Could have gone from C's get degrees to B minuses or B pluses at least.
Yeah, easy.
Well, thank you both for that. A lot of interesting stuff happening. WordPress, not so interesting. That's pretty much daily occurrence, but
I left the Microsoft ones out for the most part.
Yeah.
There were like 5 or 6 on that list.
I'm going to stop talking about WordPress, to be honest. It's just bad every week.
maybe we just put a note on the podcast description, like watch out for WordPress.
Want even more Cyber Rants? Be sure to subscribe to the Cyber Rants podcast. Get your copy of our best-selling book, Cyber Rants, on Amazon today. This podcast is brought to you by Silent Sector, a firm dedicated to building world-class cybersecurity programs for mid-market and emerging companies across the U.S. Silent Sector also provides industry-leading penetration tests and cyber risk assessments. Visit silentsector.com and contact us today.
Well, on bigger and better things here. We have special guests with us, Dr. Heather Monti. Heather, you have a tremendous background. I'm going to attempt to touch on some key points and would love to hear more. But Heather is really passionate about cybersecurity and technology education and also aviation. And she's been able to kind of blend these passions throughout her career, which is a really cool thing to be able to do, to be able to make your passion your career. So she's been a professor of IT and information security, as well as associate dean of technology at Grand Canyon University. She's even developed programs for not only universities, but also K through 12 education around STEM and cybersecurity and IT. So a lot of experience in the education world, and also tremendous education herself, bachelor's in computer science, master's in teaching with computer science emphasis, PhD in information technology, commercial pilot license with instrument rating, FAA certified flight instructor. Heather, forgive me, I probably have missed a bunch of things, but I know now you're principal cybersecurity architect for Fortune 500. Working in the aerospace, which must be seeing some interesting things there. Board of directors for the Arizona Cyber Initiative, which is a nonprofit for high school cybersecurity education. You founded Educators Who Drone, which apparently is just exploding, but a global community of teachers and parents and pilots, basically using drones to encourage and support STEM education initiative. And that's sounds like a lot more interesting, stuff than a lot of the things that I did in school. So that's the students these days have some pretty cool opportunities. Also have cybercoffeetalk.com. Check out podcasts there. She's got a lot of great information about cybersecurity awareness and education, as well as cybersecurity for business and IT and cybersecurity careers as well. And then also as heathermonti.com. And we'll put those links on our podcast page as well. But Heather, thank you again for joining us. What did I miss? What else can you tell us about your career and how you got started and how that led you to where you went today?
Yeah, I just don't like to be bored. I don't like to sit around and, just do nothing. I do take time and, sit down and watch TV here and there, but, I just don't like being bored. I think that, at a young age, I was exposed to aviation. I took a field trip to the airport in kindergarten and just got exposed to aviation there. And it's really sort of been a lifelong passion of mine. And, over the years, I was trying to figure out how to make it my career. And I was fully on the airline pilot track, and I was taking all my flying lessons, getting all my flight ratings, but I was also working on a backup degree in computer science because, if something happens health-wise, you can no longer be an airline pilot. So I was working on sort of this backup degree, right? And then 9/11 happened, and the airline industry just completely tanked for obvious reasons, and there just were no jobs. And so I kind of had to, take a step back and say, all right, I've got this flight instructor license, I've got this degree in computer science, which way am I going to go? And I kind of went, obviously I went the computer science route, and I've kept aviation a hobby of mine my whole life. And it's really cool because now here we are 20 years later, and I've been able to, bring the two passions, back together. I think that, as technology has advanced, so has air travel, space travel, and the use of drones in businesses. That technology is quickly advancing, and as those aircraft, I call them flying data centers now, or flying computers, they're connected. There's threats when you have connected devices, and it's an exciting time. It's a scary time, but it's also a very exciting time for people that are interested in this kind of stuff.
That's it's a good path, and I think the two, the disciplines go very, very well hand in hand. I mean, obviously, cybersecurity is critical in the in the aircraft industry, the aerospace industry in general. Pretty amazing stuff. With starting off with your your realm in the world, or your experience in the realm of education. What I'd love to hear, because we have a lot of listeners that are looking to get into the cybersecurity field or technology fields, or really have a passion and interest in this, but may not be doing it for a living yet. What is the state of cybersecurity and IT education in schools? I mean, I know it's come a long way. When I was a kid, we just had very basic computer classes on Apple IIe's and stuff, and that's kind of where it stopped. But there's a lot out there today. What is going on in that world, and where do you see it headed?
Yeah, I think that cybersecurity education has come a long way in the last even just 10 years. I mean, I don't even know when the first cybersecurity degree was offered, but 15, 20 years ago, people that are a little bit older don't necessarily have degrees in cybersecurity. I think that for people that are interested in starting a career in cybersecurity, and maybe you're a little bit older, you don't necessarily have to have a degree in cybersecurity. So say you've got a degree in business, or history, or English, something like that. Those are all valuable skills that you can bring to the cybersecurity discipline. You don't necessarily need to go back to school to get a full bachelor's degree. There's a lot of certification trainings that are available out there. There's shorter programs, boot camps, micro credentials. You can even consider getting a master's degree that you don't necessarily need to have a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity there. But just know that just because you don't necessarily have sort of what you might think is the traditional training or the traditional tech background, I guess, that should not stop you from pursuing a career in cybersecurity. There's a lot of writing that goes in with cybersecurity. So people that have degrees in English, and people that maybe, political science, stuff like that, where they're very good writers, they're very good communicators. There's a lot of opportunities there. So what my little nugget of advice would be is don't think that you need to go back to school to get a 4-year degree in cybersecurity, especially if you already have a bachelor's degree. There's a place for you in cybersecurity.
In fact, one of us on this call has a bachelor's in history, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Good. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for people that have, liberal arts degrees. You bring a different perspective. Sometimes you get people like myself. I'm very technical. Math was my favorite, class in school. I'm a very analytical person. It's very black and white. Sometimes people with the liberal arts background, they bring a different perspective. They can look at things a little bit differently. They can see gray areas a little bit better. It's something that you should definitely market about yourself, and that you bring that to the table for potential employers.
Honestly, I just wanted out of college. No.
Well, it worked out, didn't it, Mike?
So far, so good.
Well, I know, Mike, you talk a lot too about the importance of writing, right? And it's a critical skill set that so many people miss. They're so focused on being in the technology itself, they forget about that somebody has to communicate this stuff to the outside world.
Yeah, that's the one thing where just to dovetail on what you're saying about liberal arts degrees, you do have the ability to communicate and cross that bridge. And writing documentation, as boring and drudgerous as it can be, I don't know if that's a word, but anyway, having that background and doing all the writing I did for my liberal arts degree, it did help.
Yeah, it's amazing the opportunities, to get started. I mean, Laura started it. You started your career in the Army, well, even before that, but I guess job-wise started in the Army, and then for me to get in this field was through certifications. Sounds like there's no right answer across the board. It's just what are your interests and where your skill set's going to take you. Where do you want to involve?
Right. And you don't necessarily always have to start with the Security Plus certification. Like I see that a lot. I'm in a lot of online forums trying to help answer questions in that. And usually it's always, I want to get started in cybersecurity. Where should I get started? And the answer always seems to be get the Security Plus certification. That's a fantastic certification, but there's so many different career paths. I sort of liken it to the medical profession now, where you don't say, I'm going to go into the medical field. Well, what specifically in the medical field? Are you going to be a phlebotomist? Are you going to, be an RN? Are you going to be a neurosurgeon? Are you going to work in insurance? There's so many different options, and a one step career path is not necessarily it. It's, you've really got to identify what it is that you want to do, and then develop a career path and a plan from there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I wouldn't even, my advice to people having been through some various certs, I wouldn't even bother with the Security Plus certification unless you've done the Network Plus certification. And, a lot of people do jump in that and they struggle because they don't understand how the infrastructure works. Yeah, so many things out there. What about, so there's all this opportunity, and I mean, and you don't have to pay a bunch of money. You don't have to go into a bunch of get a bunch of student loans or go into debt or anything, which is outstanding, because there's so much free stuff online as well to be able to study for these certifications and all that. But despite the fact that all of these things are available, do you think there's enough people going in to cybersecurity or IT education in general, regardless of whether it's through university system or certifications? I mean, it seems like demands keep increasing, but I'm curious to see what you've seen on the kind of the top of funnel, so to speak, people going into the business.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that there's enough people going in. If you look at, there's a website called cyberseek.org, and it's a collaboration between CompTIA, and they use BLS data to show where there's open jobs in cybersecurity in the United States. And they're showing right around 350,000 open jobs just in the US alone. There's over 3 million open throughout the world. There's not enough people going into this as a profession, I think, for a couple different reasons. I think for some people it's scary. They don't understand it. They Hollywood makes this into like this, you got your hoodie on, you're sitting in a dark room, although I am sitting in a dark room right now, but they make it like this elusive thing, right? And it's to some people that's really cool, but to a lot of people that's just, they don't understand it, they don't get it. And so I think that's one thing. I think if Hollywood would have, sort of a CSI show, but, a cybersecurity edition, that would help drive interest in the field. The other thing is that, if you look at the open jobs that are out there, they're all in, mid to senior management positions. So, as we're getting people coming into the profession, you're starting out as an entry-level employee in cybersecurity generally. But the openings are in, the mid to senior level management. And that's why I'm saying that these professional skills, or sometimes called your soft skills, are so very important. Being able to communicate and being able to write well and communicate well, because in those types of positions, you're going to be working with senior leadership, and you're going to be, trying to get buy-in on things and influence and help make decisions and that kind of thing. And so you need to be able to do that. So in order to, increase that, availability of people that want to get into middle and senior management positions, we need to have those people coming in on the front end, on the entry level side. But then there also needs to be people that are willing to mentor and train people on becoming, a manager. Like, just because you're good at something, technology wise, doesn't necessarily make you a good manager or a good leader. So there needs to be that, that mentorship or those training programs out there as well. And so I think that, if we can just do a better job, I guess, showing people what careers in cybersecurity really look like, and that what are those career paths and the different routes that you can take, and that you're not necessarily just going to be sitting in a dark basement somewhere, with your hoodie on and, writing code all day. That I think that would change things. I just, there's definitely not enough people going into this profession. We're at war right now, and we need all the help we can get.
I always wanted to be Hugh Jackman in Swordfish.
Yeah, That was pretty
Seven-headed
awesome.
Hydra that you stashed on the.
Yeah, with my 6 monitors. Yeah.
Yep, you gotta.
Okay,
gotta
so
do that. You gotta
question, I have a
huge
question for you guys then. So how many monitors do you have in your setup?
I have 3.
Okay, I have 3.
I'm boring. I have one plus the laptop next to it. So one real one small one.
I'm in the Airstream, so I have 3. They descend from the ceiling, and they're the gaming style 13-inch high resolution. So they're a little smaller, and then I have the 2 laptops. That
All right, if you
underneath them.
weren't in the Airstream, how many would you have?
So at the house at the stand-up desk, I had 2 27s, and I thought that with a laptop, with a 16-inch Mac, and I thought that was fantastic.
There you go. So the stereotype is there for a reason, right? But it's not everybody in cybersecurity.
Yeah, it just depends on how much multitasking space you need, really. And so I think that's really what it is I like to have one screen that's just my email. So the other screen's really like the workspace, and so I certainly don't need 6.
You wouldn't mind having 6.
I wouldn't know what to do with 6. I mean, I'd have to put command terminals up there running like ping -L, or something, just to keep it, or ping -T rather, just to keep it going. So I have something on the screen. Yeah, now I could.
I find it very
There you
useful
go.
when I'm doing SOC 2 audits because I can have multiple large spreadsheets up at the same time. So
And you have the ability to read multiple documents at the same time, right? So if you have one up on each screen, you can just read them both.
got 2 eyes for a reason, man.
Yep. That's
Yeah. Did they do
another
that?
skill set they don't teach enough in schools, and
Or
Yeah,
people
well,
get a
that's
large
asking.
degree.
Mike's eyes have like,
Documents.
Mike's eyes have like omni rotation, like a chameleon.
Well, and there's a lot of interesting stuff out there now. I think one other problem is there's almost, if you start to look at information advice and how to get into cybersecurity and cybersecurity courses, it's almost, I don't want to say there's too much. I think there's an excellent amount, and there should always be more available. But I think it might be information overload for people looking to get in to this business right off the bat. There's sometimes too many choices is not a good thing. So
Right.
what would you tell somebody going into it, a student or somebody looking to change careers? How can they define what's right for them and what the right approach is for them?
Yeah, there's a NIST has created the cybersecurity workforce framework that really helps to define some of the work roles within cybersecurity. It doesn't, I don't think it covers every career available in cybersecurity, but it covers a big portion of them. And so, for example, say you're a software developer, you know how to write code, and you've designed applications and that kind of thing, and you want to make the switch to cybersecurity. There's a huge need for people that understand the secure software development lifecycle. So what you can do is you can go to, if you just type in the Google, the NIST cybersecurity workforce framework, it comes right up, and there's a tool that you put in the sort of the work role, and it will give you the competencies that you need to be able to do that work role. So then from there, then you can go out and figure out what kind of training you might need. I do agree that there's a lot of really good information out there, and there's a lot of really bad information out there too. And so it can be daunting for people, especially if you don't know. Like if I were trying to go into something that I knew absolutely nothing about, and I didn't know what kinds of questions to ask, that would be very intimidating. So I think that's where schools come into place, where it's a place that you can go to, or training companies. Obviously they're going to want you to purchase their product and enroll in their programs, right? But they'll have people there that can help you figure out what is it that you're really interested in about cybersecurity, and then let's figure out a pathway for you.
That's excellent. I did not know about that. I haven't researched that kind of thing lately, so I appreciate you sharing that. And I think for a lot of listeners, that'll be some really valuable information to look into. So, and before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about your interest in kind of what you're doing with drones. That's just an interesting topic, and I'd be curious to see kind of what the crossover is when it comes to cybersecurity technology and drones and kind of how you see that industry evolving.
Yeah, I think that in 2017, I think it was, I was kind of just paying attention to where drone technology was going. And I was looking at prices of things, and I'm looking at them saying, it's not going to be long before some of these drones are going to be under $100, which means a couple things, that more and more people buy them. And also it makes them much more affordable to bring into a classroom. And I'm thinking like K-12, like trying to get kids, interested in, STEM. And I, with my aviation background, my technology background, I'm looking at this going, you can teach just about anything related to STEM. So science, technology, engineering, and math. You can teach just about anything using a drone. You can teach weather, you can teach aerodynamics, you can teach engineering design. You can, there's so much stuff that you can teach with them. And then as I was watching, I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if somebody developed a drone that was under $100, but also came with a software development kit, so that you could write code that you could execute on the drone. And so there's a couple out there that are available now. They starting in like 2018, 2019, the technology became more affordable, so they're available now. And so what you can do is you can work with block programming languages. So Scratch is one that MIT has developed, but then there's some other block programming languages. So anybody that's written code before knows that you can be missing a semicolon and it can drive you nuts for an entire weekend. And so the idea with block coding is that it takes away that initial frustration of learning syntax, and you're clicking and dragging and you're putting together a computer program. And then when you execute that program, the drone goes and does whatever it is that you told it to do. So it's sort of your introduction to autonomous flight. So you've created this program where you tell the drone to climb to 10 feet, and then you tell it to roll to the left or roll to the right 90 degrees, or descend another 5 feet and move forward 50 feet, things like that. And what happens then is kids can see when they're writing a program and then they execute it on a drone, and the drone goes and does what they told it to do, they can very easily see where they made mistakes. Where like, no, I wanted it to turn right here, not left. Oh, okay. And then they can go back through and they can find their errors. Where when you are, writing a program on a computer and then you're executing it and things are running in the background and you can't necessarily see it, kids, that's very abstract, and kids don't necessarily have that abstract thinking just yet. So this is a much more concrete way of them to see what it is that they're coding. Me being a pilot, I asked a couple of my friends, I was like, would anybody be interested in like helping out if I started this like group for teachers who wanted to use drones in their classroom, and we could answer questions for them. And so a couple of people are like, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. So I started a Facebook group. It started as a Facebook group, and it's blown up over the last 3 years or so since I started it. And we've got people in 7 different countries, and they're all people that they're either like homeschool parents, they're school teachers, they're community college teachers. We've got some university professors in there. But anybody that's really interested in drones and STEM education, everybody's sharing ideas and sharing, things that they're doing. It gets real busy during the summer for summer camps in the group. And it's just, I don't know, it's exploding. I have to do something more formal with it, just because I'm getting companies, drone manufacturing companies coming to me saying like they want to be able to provide, resources and stuff to the group and stuff. And they have to, there's certain things need to be in place, that kind of thing. But I don't know. It's one of those things, like it was an idea and it took off.
That's really awesome. I look forward to seeing how it progresses. And to all the listeners out there, check out more information from heathermonti.com. Also check out the Cyber Coffee Talk podcast on your favorite podcast platform, or go to cybercoffeetalk.com, and there's a lot more information available. Heather, how else can people get a hold of you, or are there other resources that you would point them to that you have?
Yeah, if you go to heathermonti.com, right in the middle of the page, there's a link to all my like LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet. I love it. I think it's fantastic. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you find me there, you can shoot me a message.
Great. And Monti is spelled Montie. for those listening, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining us. This has been outstanding, and I just appreciate all your work in these different areas. We need more. We know we need more cybersecurity professionals, and creating those different avenues and giving them advice to get into the field and really help us protect our country is so critical right now, and I think will continue to be for the rest of our lives. So I appreciate all you do, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Heather.
Does
Thank you,
anybody
Heather.
else have any final thoughts or ideas they'd like to share before we wrap up?
I just want to thank Heather again. You're such a beacon of light. So thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Thanks, and stay in school and don't do drugs.
Yes, excellent advice. Excellent advice. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the Cyber Rants podcast. If you like the show, subscribe. Go to cyberrantspodcast.com, and there's a form there. If you have any questions, ideas, topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Love your feedback. And thank you again. Have a great rest of your day.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.